me again, Kevin. Question. On draft night, it's bad. Just talked about it a few minutes ago, but what was it and what domino really...
In the gentle warmth of the Coralville Community Food Pantry on a crisp January morning in 2025, as volunteers sorted through boxes of donations and families waited patiently in line for groceries they could no longer afford, Caitlin Clark walked quietly through the doors carrying far more than a $22,000 check from her foundation. She carried a promise, a memory, and a truth that had stayed with her for years. A memory of a single mother she had once met here, a woman who had changed her entire understanding of what it meant to struggle, to survive, and to help. The moment Caitlin approached the Martinez family, visiting the pantry for the first time with their 3 young children, her intention wasn't about publicity or charity. It was about dignity, hope, and the sacred act of showing up for others. The Coralville Pantry had long been a place rooted in compassion, but on this particular morning, it became the setting for something deeply personal. A quiet return to the site where Caitlin's understanding of greatness had first been redefined. Years earlier, as a sophomore at Iowa, Caitlin had volunteered at the pantry as part of a team service project. What had begun as a simple athletic department photo opportunity transformed into a moment that altered her perspective entirely when she met Sarah Chun, a graduate student and single mother struggling to feed her 2 children while finishing her degree. Sarah's eyes carried exhaustion, but her voice carried unwavering dignity. "I'm not ashamed to be here," she had told Caitlin, her words measured yet full of quiet strength. "I'm grateful that places like this exist. One day, I'll give back instead of needing help." That statement stayed with Caitlin long after, shaping her compassion into conviction. She began to understand that helping wasn't just about giving from one's abundance, but about meeting people where they are, with empathy, respect, and the recognition that struggle does not diminish worth. When Caitlin later established her foundation, the Coralville Food Pantry became one of the first organizations she pledged to support, not merely with money, but with presence. She had kept her volunteer work largely private, preferring the quiet impact of showing up to the performative noise of public charity. That was her promise to Sarah, to never forget that true service begins where judgment ends. And so, as Caitlin entered the pantry again in 2025, her heart carried the same humility that had once humbled her in that very place. What was supposed to be a brief check presentation turned into something else the moment she saw Maria Martinez, a young mother in her 20s, her face etched with both resolve and discomfort, as she guided her 3 small children through the aisles of donated goods. Maria's husband had recently lost his job, and though she stood tall, there was a quiet pain in her posture, the kind born of trying to hold a family together when pride and necessity collide. Caitlin recognized that look instantly. It was the same mixture of vulnerability and courage she had seen in Sarah years earlier. Without hesitation, she approached. "Excuse me?" Caitlin said softly, her tone gentle yet grounded. "Is this your first time here?" Maria nodded, a flicker of embarrassment crossing her face. "Yes," she whispered. "I never thought I'd need to come to a place like this, but we're just trying to make sure the kids have enough to eat." There was something profoundly human in those words, a confession of circumstance, not weakness. Caitlin knelt to meet the children's eyes, smiling with the warmth of someone who understood more than she let on. "You know," she said softly, "some of the strongest, most amazing people I've ever met have needed help at some point in their lives. Needing help doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." The words weren't rehearsed. They came from somewhere deep within, from the part of her that remembered Sarah's courage and the lessons that humility had taught her. The moment, captured by a volunteer's camera, would later go viral, not because of what Caitlin gave that day, but because of what she received in return. It was Maria's quiet response that struck a chord with everyone who heard it. "Thank you. Sometimes it just helps to be seen." Those words carried the essence of what Caitlin had come to understand about leadership and compassion. True giving, she realized, wasn't about handing over a check or posing for photographs. It was about presence, listening, and affirming the dignity of another person's experience. As she helped the Martinez children pick out their favorite cereal and chatted with Maria about her husband's job search, Caitlin found herself reflecting on how easily people overlook the quiet heroism of everyday life. the perseverance of parents, the generosity of strangers, the unspoken grace that sustains communities through hardship. That morning, surrounded by shelves of donated food and the hum of small conversations, Caitlin felt something shift again within her. The pantry wasn't just a place of need. It was a place of humanity, a reminder that everyone, no matter how accomplished or admired, is only one moment away from vulnerability and one act of kindness away from hope. As she left the building later that day, the air still crisp with winter, Caitlin paused by the doorway and looked back. The laughter of children echoed faintly behind her, mingling with the sound of volunteers restocking shelves. She thought of Sarah and wondered where she might be now. Perhaps graduated, perhaps giving back just as she'd promised. And she thought of Maria, whose strength mirrored that same quiet resilience. It was then Caitlin understood that her foundation, her career, even her fame, all found their true purpose here, in these human exchanges that had nothing to do with applause. For all the records she had broken and the accolades she had earned, it was moments like this.
It's kept me in a place where I've been grateful for everything that's happened, that's been thrown my way. It's kept me humble to not take anything for granted, and it's just...
In the gentle hum of the Coralville Community Food Pantry, surrounded by shelves stacked with generosity and the quiet murmur of gratitude, Caitlin Clark stood face to face with Maria Martinez, a young mother doing everything she could to hold her family together. As Maria shared her story, how her husband had lost his job and how she had been laid off as a teacher due to budget cuts, Caitlin could feel the weight of fear and exhaustion beneath the woman's composure. She spoke softly, with the steadiness of someone who understood that kindness was sometimes more powerful than any amount of money. You know, Caitlin said, asking for help when you need it takes more courage than most people will ever have. The words seemed to lift something heavy from Maria's shoulders, and Caitlin could see the tension in her face ease just slightly. But she wasn't finished. Standing up and meeting Maria's eyes, Caitlin added, "This isn't charity. This is community. This is people looking out for each other, because that's what we're supposed to do. And one day, when you're in a position to help someone else, you'll remember this and you'll pay it forward." Those simple, heartfelt words captured the very essence of compassion, not as condescension, but as shared humanity. What happened next would be filmed by a volunteer, but the full depth of the moment could never be contained by a short video clip. Tears welled in Maria's eyes, not from embarrassment, but from relief and recognition. "I've been so afraid people would think I'm failing my children," she admitted, her voice trembling. Caitlin shook her head gently. "You're not failing anyone," she replied, emotion thick in her throat. "You're doing exactly what a good mother does, making sure your children are cared for, no matter what it takes. That's not failure. That's love." The conversation deepened as Caitlin listened to Maria speak about her dreams, her children's hopes, and her determination to rebuild. But it was Maria's. Tugging at her mother's sleeve, she whispered something that made Maria smile for the first time that day. When Caitlin asked what she'd said, Maria replied, "She said if you're here, this must be a good place, because famous people only go to good places." Caitlin knelt beside the little girl, moved by the innocent wisdom in her words. "You're absolutely right, Sophia," she said. "This is a very good place, full of very good people. And your mom is one of them, because she's taking such good care of you." That exchange, tender, unscripted,